If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 10 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that Vice President Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash in St. Louis due to a bird strike into Busch Stadium. In the area code 314, it will be a burning bush, as described in Exodus 3:14, on November 27, 2024. She will be replaced by Michelle Obama, and then Barack Obama will replace Michelle. I am predicting that former President Jimmy Carter will die on November 17th. It is predicted that President Trump will die from a heart attack on December 12th, 2024. It is also predicted that Trump's heart attack will be triggered by a directed energy weapon that will target Trump through Bluetooth technology. The components inside the pointy thing that Trump took will facilitate this, and it is believed that when Barack Obama is sitting next to Trump at Jimmy Carter's funeral, Obama will obtain Trump's Bluetooth MAC address, which will be used to target Trump with a directed energy weapon. I am predicting that dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan, New York City, and there will be a large-scale evacuation on December 16th. I am predicting that Israel will bomb Iran on December 17th. Israel will nuke and completely destroy Damascus, Syria on December 26th, 2024. It is predicted that after Kamala Harris's death in a plane crash, Joe Biden will appoint Michelle Obama as his vice president. On December 17th, the Democrat Party will use their electoral votes to make Michelle Obama the president-elect. It is predicted that on either December 22nd or 25th, Joe Biden will suffer a stroke. It is predicted that on December 26th, 2024, Joe Biden will step down and Vice President Michelle Obama will become the 47th president. It is predicted that on December 26th, Michelle Obama will appoint Barack Obama as the 51st vice president. On January 12th, 2025, Michelle Obama will step down and Barack Obama will become the 48th president. His public inauguration ceremony will be on January 20th, 2025. It is predicted that on April 20th, 2025, there will be an outbreak of monkeypox or Marburg disease or both. April 20th will be a symbolic beginning to a new pandemic. June 8th, 2025, the true Feast of Pentecost in the calendar that watches for new moons, will be the day of the resurrection rapture event. It is predicted that on June 9th, the day after the rapture, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the fifth trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens, and it is possible that June 9th will be the day Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. At some point, there will be a massive Mary apparition that will deceive the masses, because all Mary apparitions in history have been demons pretending to be Mary. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. June 9th will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. I am predicting that singer-songwriter Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. It is predicted that on August 6th, 2025, the historic barge that has been stuck on the rocks of the Niagara River for over 100 years will finally break free and crash over Niagara Falls. The reason for this is that Niagara Falls is Noah's flood symbolism, and the barge was involved in the most dramatic rescue in the history of Niagara Falls, symbolic of Noah's Ark. Niagara in the native language means straight, narrow way, and Niagara's Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the CN Tower in downtown Toronto, because Toronto and its tower are symbolic of the Tower of Babel. In a game of horseshoes, the object is to aim the horseshoe and throw it at the metal stick, which is why the Horseshoe Falls is perfectly aimed at the metal stick that is the CN Tower. God is communicating that as testament for those who will live in the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on earth, the geography of North America will, as a result of a massive earthquake, be divided by a body of water from the Great Lakes to the Mississippi Delta. This destruction will be judgment on America and Canada for attempting to divide God's land, Israel. When this happens, the water in the Great Lakes will spill out over southern Ontario and Toronto. I am predicting that a solar flare will erupt on the surface of the sun and send a coronal mass ejection that will hit Earth on August 13th, 2025, which will knock out America's power grid and will lead to food shortages. The hit of the coronal mass ejection, predicted for August 13th, that will knock out the power grid will also knock many planes out of the sky. I am predicting that on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth, which will trigger the eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the east coast. The asteroid will also trigger a mega landslide on Hawaii Island that will trigger a mega tsunami that will hit the west coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be on the Day of Atonement, October 1st, 2025. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Make a note right now of these alternative platforms that you can find me on, in case you can't find me later. All right, welcome. In this video, I will explain the prophetic signs that occurred on August 13th, 2024, that revealed, among other things, the date on which it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. On December 17th, 2024, which will be 126 days after this August 13th date. 126 hints at the 1,260-day period that in Bible prophecy symbolizes the period of the Antichrist. This is also exactly 6 plus 6 plus 6 weeks. And in Bible prophecy, 666 is the number associated with the Antichrist. The Antichrist is the 44th president who was inaugurated in 2009. And this 126 days, which is also 6 plus 6 plus 6 weeks, is also exactly 4 months and 4 days, which hints at the 44th president who is the Antichrist. God pairs 44 and 9 together in his big picture of end times signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel because the 44th president was inaugurated in 2009. That's one very important main reason. And that is why the sign we received on August 13th, as I will be explaining, involves 9 arrests. It was 9 people that were arrested, 9 Jewish people that were protesting Israel and shut down the highway in California, as I will explain. So that's how this 9 arrests on this 9th of Av in the Hebrew calendar, which is extremely important, pairs with this 4 months and 4 days to get us the date it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. And the rest of this video will explain much more of what I'm talking about regarding the reason why these prophetic signs that occurred on August 13th imply this. All right, again, just so that I'm clear, I'm going to explain this again and repeat myself. This video was recorded the day after August 13th. This email was written on August 13th, but after the prophetic signs were recognized on August 13th. That's because God was pointing to August 13th ahead of time. Many other videos on this channel explain that, how August 13th was being pointed to ahead of time in regards to Jimmy Carter. And this video will explain what happened on August 13th. On August 13th, we received the prophetic signs that reveal adding 39 more days, besides the fact that Jimmy Carter is the 39th president. Okay? That too is explained and also explained in other videos as well. Why it's 39 days from August 13th. 39 is also 13 plus 13 plus 13 days. And God repeats a number 3 times, often for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. And the number 13 in the Bible is symbolic of Iran. In the book of Esther, the Jews were persecuted in Persia, which is Iran, on the 2 13th days of the month. Furthermore, from the Bible, the number 13 is symbolic of the Antichrist, because for one thing, Haman in the book of Esther is a type for the Antichrist. So we add 39 days 13 plus 13 plus 13, to August 13th, the 13th of the month for that matter. And I'll explain in this video the very important signs that occurred on August 13th. This is a very important video. But that got us to September 21st. And September 21st was another extremely important step in the trail of signs that is leading to the predicted date of Carter's death, which is extremely prophetic and important, and other things. September 21st was a major date, and it revealed other things as well. Besides the date that Carter will die, it revealed the date that Kamala Harris will die in a plane crash, and it also revealed the date of the symbolic beginning of the coming zombie pandemic. But something symbolic will initiate this period of the demonic realm colliding with the earthly realm. All right? Now, so that's that. Yes, the date on which Carter will die is now known to be September 26th, 5 days after September 21st, which is why we received the signs pointing to Michael Jackson, a former member of the Jackson 5, and Jimmy Carter. But that's all explained. I'm not going to get into it. They met on the date 5/5, May 5th. Anyway, I'll explain this. It's extremely important and so amazing. You need to absolutely watch this thriller video. I titled it with a thumbnail with a picture of Michael Jackson dancing with zombies. It's the thriller video that's predicting the death of Jimmy Carter, on September 26th. Make sure you watch that thriller video also after this video, but also the wise person, when the prediction comes to pass, will recognize that they need to watch every minute of every Carter video on this channel. All right, September 26th also ended up being a step in the trail of signs leading to the predicted death of Jimmy Carter. Many amazing prophetic signs occurred on this date, including Hurricane Helene, which, as explained in other videos, points to Jimmy Carter's death. Hurricane Helene hit the 3 times 9th state, Florida, the 27th state to join the Union. 27 is 3 times 9, and this occurred 39 days before the predicted death of the 39th president on the 309th day of the calendar year, November 4th. But all of this significance regarding Hurricane Helene is so amazing, but it's explained in other videos. The point here, though, is that the trail of signs again led to September 21st, which then led to September 26th, which leads to now November 4th. And this starts in this video from August 13th. And again, August 13th was for adding 39 days, as I explained and will continue to explain more. August 13th again added 39 days, 13 plus 13 plus 13 days to get us to September 21st, which then got us to September 26th, which then led to another 39 days to November 4th, the date it is predicted that the 39th president will die. As we can see here, this email was composed on August 13th. Okay, and if you are skeptical, email me and I'll forward this to you. Let's begin here with this brief explanation for what occurred on August 13th. A date, by the way, that God was pointing to heavily ahead of time to be significant, and also in context of Jimmy Carter, in context of other things as well. It was the prophetic 9th of Av date in the Hebrew calendar. The 9th of Av is the date on which the Babylonians and the Romans destroyed the first and second temples. This is the date in the Hebrew calendar that is associated with calamity. In fact, all of the major calamities in Jewish history in the last 2,000 years have, well, if we go back to the Babylonian first temple destruction, even further back, but all of the calamities symbolically began on this 9th of Av date. I have made a video talking about this, but you can also find information regarding this on the internet quite easily, and it is amazing. all of the major calamities occurred on the symbolically began on the 9th of Av date. The reason for this, by the way, is that in Deuteronomy chapter 28, before the Israelites crossed into the Promised Land, God said that eventually in the future they would reject him, and then he would chase them around the world from nation to nation by the sword, which is exactly what happened. No other people have been scattered around the world like the Jews, and they were literally chased through threats of violence and the sword from nation to nation. In fact, also, it's quite apparent that part of this text is clearly describing Auschwitz. For one thing, it says that when it is nighttime, they'll wish it was daytime, and when it is daytime, they'll wish it is nighttime. And that was part of the experience of the Jews in Auschwitz because of the horrendous conditions during the day with the death camps, but then the conditions in their sleeping barracks were so horrendous they would have been wishing they were out in the daytime. So that's one of the things about Auschwitz when you go to visit it. You'll learn of this experience of how the conditions were so awful that they would have been wishing it was, not night anymore, and then when it was daytime, they would have been wishing it was nighttime. And so anyway, God, as I'm saying, said to the Jews that he would do all of this after they reject him. And the 9th of Av, well, for that matter, the day that the Jews, the Nazis started putting the Jews onto the death trains to the death camps was the 9th of Av. And also, prior to that, the Grossachsen-Warsaw policy, which was when the Nazis rounded up Jews and put them into ghettos in the cities, that began also on the 9th of Av with the memo written by the commandant to begin this policy, and that memo had a date, which was the 9th of Av in the Hebrew calendar. So you have the two major developments in the genocide of the Jews beginning on the 9th of Av. Now, World War II was a product of World War I, and World War I was very bad for Jews and led to displacement of Jews and pogroms in Russia. And World War I began on the 9th of Av. But this pattern goes back all the way to the first and second temples. And so the Jews were exiled after the destruction of the second temple, which was also on the 9th of Av. And the Romans didn't destroy the second temple on the 9th of Av because the Babylonians did. That just happened to be in the day in the Jewish-Roman War when the Romans finally broke through the walls and then destroyed the temple. And the Romans weren't thinking or saying to themselves, let's wait a few days and then break through the walls on that day to really get the Jews on their symbolic day. So the Jews in this description in Deuteronomy 28 were scattered around the world beginning shortly after, in 70 AD, in 70 AD, with the Second Temple destruction was the beginning of their exile around the world. They were taken as slaves, and then there was the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 AD, and on that day, an estimated 100 to 500,000 Jews were killed in one day. When the Romans finally surrounded the remaining holdout of this revolt against the Romans in a particular town, and the revolt was led by a man named Bar Kokhba, which is the reason for the name, the Bar Kokhba Revolt, and that's when they killed an estimated 100 to 500,000 Jews in one day, and that day was also the 9th of Av. And then the Roman emperor after that was completely fed up with the Jews because they couldn't be occupied, and took the rest of the Jews into slavery, and that's how they ended up throughout the Roman Empire, and then from there they were further scattered. So anyway, and all of these calamities occurred on the 9th of Av. So I've gone through now a few of them, and I won't go through the rest. You can learn about that in another video that I've made. It's part of the series that I made in 2017, the first videos I ever made. And series is titled The Most Astounding Information Ever. Okay, and so the question is, because God said that he would do this after the Jews rejected him, but the question is, well, how did the Jews reject God in the 1st century AD, before the destruction of the Second Temple? So there must have been some way in which the Jews had rejected God that led to the destruction of the Second Temple and their exile around the world and all of what's described in Deuteronomy 28. Well, how did the Jews reject God in the 1st century, right before the Second Temple was destroyed, is the question. And the answer to that question of how they rejected God is they rejected Jesus, who claimed to be God. And that's the only explanation that makes any sense as to this coincidence for all of the calamities occurring on the same calendar date. In other words, through all of these calamities beginning on the 9th of Av, God is pointing to the destruction of the first and second temples on the 9th of Av in order to communicate to the Jews how it is that they rejected him through rejecting Jesus, God. Okay, so that's the little background here, not the little background, but that's the background here for this 9th of Av date and why it's so important and how it regards the Jews. And August 13th, 2024 was the 9th of Av date in the Hebrew calendar this year. And so here is the prophetic signs, a description of it that I briefly wrote as they were being discovered. And I'll just go through this, and it'll be amazing how also this is revealing the date it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. Okay. Today, by the way, that I'm recording this is August 14th. And the post date of the video you are watching on the social media platform you are watching also proves that this prediction for Israel bombing Iran is being made ahead of time. Okay, prior to August 13th, 2024, it was expected to be a step in the trail of signs regarding Jimmy Carter. August 13th was 4 + 4 + 4 days after the signs on August 1st. That included the 4-point difference in the football game that focused on the new rule change regarding the 40-yard line. I explain all of this in the must-watch Trump assassination video. It's, of course, all of the videos are about much more than their titles. What is being explained on this channel is God's big picture of signs, and it's really not appropriate to give it a title because it's a big picture. You can't, but anyway, you have to give it a title to get people's interest and to distinguish the videos from other videos. And it really is partly about the explanation as to the profound, true prophetic reason that God was communicating through the assassination attempt of Trump in God's big picture of signs, which isn't explained anywhere else. And anyway, so the point is that the signs on August 1st are extremely important, and the story that God told through this is extremely important, and that's explained in the Trump assassination video. Okay, so on August 1st, besides this football game that gave us the number 4, was the 24 hostages exchange between the U.S. and an enemy nation. Okay, so I wrote this quickly, so I got some typos here. Okay, Carter was born in 1924, and is predicted to die in 2024, which gives us G2424, the 24th word in Strong's Greek Concordance, which is the word Jesus. Okay, Jimmy Carter's initials, JC, also hints at Jesus Christ. Carter's presidency is known for the 444-day hostage crisis. That's the name of this hostage crisis that also goes by the name the Iranian hostage crisis. Okay, it's another name for it, the 444-day hostage crisis that Carter's presidency is known for. The Carter presidency was also known for pressuring Israel to give part of Gaza and the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt in the name of peace. Okay, and that's why August 13th was known to be a step in the trail of Jimmy Carter signs 4 + 4 + 4 days later. Because this prisoner exchange was essentially a hostage exchange, and it was the state that was all about Jimmy Carter that was known ahead of time that it would be about Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy Carter's presidency is known for the hostages. And that hostage crisis was 444 days, which is why we had the 4 + 4 + 4 days connection from August 1st to August 13th. And this also involved, Carter's presidency also involves Gaza and Sinai Peninsula, okay? So Jimmy Carter, the name, is equal to 135 in simple English gematria. 135 is 45 + 45 + 45. As explained in the videos, the association between the number 45 and Carter is very important, all right? Not only is his name equal to 45 + 45 + 45, and also, by the way, God often repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. August 15th will be the 45th anniversary of the release of the movie Apocalypse Now, which cost $45 million to make. And Carter in God's signs is symbolism for Methuselah, whose name in the Bible means when he dies, destruction, which is why the connection to Apocalypse Now and the date on which it is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die. And that's just scratching the surface. It's explained in the other videos. August 13th, 2024, on August 13th, 2024, pro-Palestinian Hamas Jewish protesters, in other words, the protesters were Jewish, but they're pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas terrorists. These pro-Palestinian Jewish protesters blocked and shut down and by the way, the Palestinians in Gaza are supportive of Hamas. It's not incorrect to associate the two. They voted for this regime, and polls show that they overwhelmingly, the majority of them, support Hamas. Okay? They, in other words, have the same ideology as the Hamas terrorists. And that's why they love them. Because the Palestinians in Gaza are more concerned about killing Jews than they are about their own well-being. And that's the peculiar thing about this particular hatred of anti-Semitism. Unlike other hatreds between ethnic groups, no other hatred of an ethnic group involves willingly destroying one's own group in order to get the other group. And that's because the only way to truly understand the conflict is from a spiritual perspective. Right? Islam is from Satan. Okay. And it is a force that is against the restoration of Israel, which is God's plan at the end of the age. That will happen before the second coming, and the second coming will be because of this restoration of Israel. Okay, that's the Bible. And the anti-plan would be the anti-plan in the Bible, and that's Islam. Okay? And by the way, if
one really truly understands Islam from the correct perspective, it's clearly designed to counter Christianity. The people of Islam are obsessed with how Jesus was just a prophet. Like literally, they are obsessed with that. That's what the religion is. The Islamic religion is how Jesus was just a prophet. Okay, it's Satan's concoction to counter Christianity for Arabs, right? Then there's other ways in which Satan has countered Christianity for modern Westerners, for like the New Age and Indian religion, also for Catholics. You know, it's not Christianity. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing designed to trick Catholics, etc. So, because Catholicism isn't the Bible, it's man-made religion on top of the Bible. So, you know, it's, in other words, to counter the Bible, which is Christianity, right? So, anyway, Satan's got a plan for all kinds of different people, but the plan for the people of the Middle East is Islam, and it's clearly designed to counter Christianity, and that's why the religion is obsessed with how Jesus was just a prophet. Okay, so that's the truth, though, about the conflict. All right, and so anyway, on August 13th, we had the pro-Palestinian Jewish protesters blocking and shutting down the I-405 highway in West Los Angeles. 405 hints at 45, and I just began to elaborate on the significance of 45. It, by the way, is a number that symbolizes the second coming. God has hidden the symbolism for the second coming within the number 45 because the reciprocal of 45, in other words, 1 divided by 45, is 0.022, and that hints at 220, which symbolizes Jesus, because the 220th word in Strong's Greek Concordance is the word rooster, and rooster is symbolic of Peter, and Peter was named Peter by Jesus. His name was Simon, and Peter means rock, and in the Bible, rock is symbolism for Jesus. But also, 220 is symbolic of 2 times 110, and 110 hints at the date in the Hebrew calendar 110, the 10th day of the first month, Nisan 10, which was the date of Jesus' first coming, the triumphal entry into Jerusalem as the King of the Jews. And therefore, the second coming of Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem in his second coming is hinted at or symbolized by 2 times the date 110. And so that's hinted at with 220. And that's what 45 hints at. All right? And so that's why on the prophetic 9th of Av date, the 405 highway was shut down by Jewish protesters. Also, the number 45 is the 9th triangular number, and we're talking about the 9th of Av date here. The protesters are protesting the issue of Gaza land, the Gaza land. The issue of the Camp David Accords, which Carter's presidency is known for, was about Gaza. Okay? In the Bible, David subdued the tribes on the plains of Gaza. Carter is known for being from Plains, Georgia, and Georgia hints at Gaza. No other president is known for the town from which he is from anything remotely like Jimmy Carter. He lived his entire life in this small village in Georgia, except for the time that he was in the governor's mansion and the White House. He is truly associated with Plains, Georgia, and the Camp David Accords, and that's because David subdued the tribes on the plains of Gaza. Okay, 9 people were arrested. That's astounding because, again, 405 hints at 45, the 9th triangular number, and that's confirmed through the fact that there were 9 people that were arrested on this 9th of Av date. That regards the Jews, and it was Jewish protesters. And by the way, this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses that confirm the matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. Okay? And so this confirms the 405 hints at 45, and 45 is the 9th triangular number. This occurred on the 9th of Av date in the Hebrew calendar. The 9th of Av in the Hebrew calendar is the date on which the first and second temples were destroyed by the Babylonians and the Romans. August 9th, that's a typo. Sorry, no, it's not. August hints at the month of Av because they sound the same and they are at the same time of year. And so God is playing with this. August hints at Av. All right? This sign on the I-45, 405, the ninth triangular number, occurred on the 13th of the month of August and in the 31st state. The number 31 hints at 13. August 13th, the 13th of August, is 13 days before August 26th.
All right, I'm going to interrupt what I was saying here. I'm now recording this on September 15th, but what I am about to say has been known, well, it was known prior to August 26th, 13 days after August 13th, that this wasn't correct. The analysis for the signs on this date hinting at adding 13 are correct, but it is 3 sets of 13. Okay, and again, it was recognized that this wasn't correct August 26th, long before August 26th. Well, before anyway. Well, the signs here, first of all, we have the hint at this number 13 with the 31st state. But also on this day, the most radical anti-Semite member of the U.S. federal government, elected official, Ilhan Omar, I think that's how you say her first name. Her name hints at Iran. So I think her name is, Ilhan Omar. Okay? Ilhan hints at Iran. Anyway, Iran is Persia. Persia was renamed Iran in 1935. Ancient Persia is where the Jews were during the time that's recorded in the book of Esther in the Bible. And in the book of Esther, the Jews were persecuted on the 2 13th days of the month. All right? By the general of Persia, which is why, by the way, General Soleimani was killed by Trump, God's trumpet, on the date 1-3 in 2020. The date 1-3, January 3rd, hinted at 13. So this number 13 is relevant for the Jews and persecution of the Jews. And we are talking about the 9th of Av, this symbolic day for Jews being persecuted. And on this day, Ilhan Omar, the most radical anti-Semite, anti-Jew in the U.S. Congress, won her primary by 13%. Okay? Also on this day, there was another prophetic sign that pointed to the Hebrew Bible, which was the death of Wally Amos, the founder of Famous Amos Cookies. If you live outside the U.S., you won't know probably Famous Amos Cookies, but it is a big deal. It is very famous. Famous Amos Cookies is very famous, all right? And there's lots to Famous Amos, or rather Wally Amos, which I get into in other videos. But I'll just say for this video that it points to, because he died at the age of 88, Amos 8:8, chapter 8, verse 8, which I read in the other video that's talking more about the prophetic significance of the death of Wally Amos. But Wally Amos, who God pointed to on this date, because he died on this day, was born 13 times 13 days before the Antichrist was born. the Antichrist that is described in Revelation chapter 13. In fact, there are two Antichrists. The first of the two, Pope Francis, was born 13 times 13 days after Wally Amos at 88, which pointed to Amos 8:8. Okay, so that's two 13s there, 13 times 13 days. We have the 13% that I forget now. It begins with an I, ends with an A-N. It's a hint at Iran. So I think it's Ilhan Omar. That was the day she won by 13%. So we have three 13s. Well, three 13s is 39. And again, God repeats a number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. And Jimmy Carter was the 39th president. This date, as was explained, pointed to Jimmy Carter. It was, for example, 4 plus 4 plus 4 days after the Trail of Signs that you hopefully maybe have seen in another video by now. But if not, Jimmy Carter is synonymous with the Iranian hostage crisis. And again, we are talking about Iran and Persia and the persecution of Jews and the number 13. Well, Jimmy Carter was the 39th. I'll put it this way. Jimmy Carter was the 13th plus 13th plus 13th president. The number 13 is associated with Iran and Persia. And Jimmy Carter's presidency is most probably known, one of the things anyway that it's most known for is the Iranian hostage crisis, which was actually, it's also known as the 444-day hostage crisis. And again, the signs on August 1st were 4 plus 4 plus 4 days before August 13th and on and on. And so that's why it's relevant here that we have, or another reason why anyway, Jimmy Carter is very much in God's signs, symbolism for this contentious issue of the land and whose land is it and who has the last word. Well, the last word is God. Bible prophecy tells us this. And it's symbolism for this persecution of Jews, which the Antichrist will do. The Antichrist that is described in Revelation 13, the two of them actually, Barack Obama being the second of the two, they will persecute the Jews in Judea. And so that's another reason for this connection here. Because again, we have Wally Amos born 13 times 13 days before the Antichrist was born, who is described in Revelation 13. We have the most radical Jew-hating member winning by 13% on this 9th of Av date, which is all about calamity and persecution of Jews. And then we have the Jewish protesters shutting down the I-405 in support of Hamas, the persecutors of Jews. So that's, by the way, symbolic of how there will be Jews on the side of the Antichrist. And that is the case currently. It's not something that's going to come out of the blue. There are many, many, many Jews that are Antichrist and anti-God, although they don't know it. But they are, so anyway, they are anti-Israel, or let's just put it this way: they're on the left. The confused, deceived Jews that are diehard Democrats and supporters, although they don't realize it, of evil. There are Jews in our time that are finally waking up, like Joe Lieberman before he died, and others that are, so you know what? Things have changed. This Democrat Party isn't for real anymore. You can't count on my vote anymore, etc. And that should be any Jew who is interested in righteousness, that should be where they are at. They should never have been with the Democrat Party for many decades furthermore. But if now they're waking up, well, great. Well, anyway, that's an amazing thing, though, to think about here. We have Jews that are pro-Hamas protesting against Israel, right? So anyway, I'm getting off track here. But the point is that we have, through the signs on August 13th, this revelation to add 13 plus 13 plus 13 days, 39 days, to the date it is predicted that Jimmy Carter will die, the 39th president. Now, Jimmy Carter's his predicted death on September 21st will be 7 days before it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. And that's relevant because in God's signs, Jimmy Carter is symbolism for Methuselah, whose name means when he dies, destruction, because Methuselah died at the time that the flood judgment began. Methuselah was Noah's grandfather. Methuselah died exactly when the flood began. That's the story. That's how it is all symbolism for this. And so Carter is symbolism for this flood, in other words, because of this. It's explained in the other videos how exactly Carter is symbolism for Methuselah. And so, and you need to watch the other videos. There's one explanation that's like 2 hours long that I've put in multiple videos. Make sure you watch the entire explanation and you'll learn how Carter is symbolism for Methuselah. Well, anyway, the flood began after a 7-day warning. And that's why it is 7 days after Carter, who is not only symbolism for the flood because of Methuselah, and therefore the 7-day warning, but Carter is also clearly symbolism for Israel and Israel's enemies. Because not only was it the Iranian hostage crisis that ended Carter's presidency, but that came after the Camp David Accords. And that is why the Iranian hostage crisis was, in one way, judgment on Jimmy Carter, a demonstration of God's displeasure with Jimmy Carter. Displeasure isn't a strong enough word, but and Jimmy Carter was responsible anyway for brokering this deal that pressured Israel to give land, Gaza, back to Egypt, as I've been explaining here. Okay, so that's why Jimmy Carter's death will be 7 days before Israel will bomb Iran. Hopefully I've explained that well. All right. September 28th, as I just explained, was being pointed to ahead of time regarding Israel bombing Iran. And it ended up being a step in the trail of signs regarding this particular event that God is communicating. This trail of signs for the day that Israel will bomb Iran has been going on for many years. And so September 28th, although God was pointing to it ahead of time, ended up being another step in the trail of signs. The analysis for how God was pointing to September 28th in advance was 100% correct, given the prophetic signs that occurred on September 28th. For example, this was the day it was announced that the leader of Hezbollah had been killed in a bombing when Israel bombed Beirut. Prior to this date, Israel had been targeting some places in Lebanon, but not Beirut. And it was Beirut that was bombed on the night of the 27th, which ended up killing the leader of Hezbollah, which was obviously huge news at the time. And that death of the leader of Hezbollah was announced on the 28th. What is interesting is that this coincided with the release of Francis Ford Coppola's new movie, which is prophetic also, and I can't explain it all here. His movie Megalopolis, which is about a city, and this was when Israel bombed the city, Beirut. Prior to that, it hadn't been bombing the capital city, Beirut. Not only that, though, the big story of Coppola's new movie is how it bombed in the box office. And it was released on the date 9/27, the day before, and so the opening weekend is the thing about new movies, and the 28th was also the day that the movie Megalopolis bombed at the box office. The date 9/27 is interesting because this is a hint at the verse in the Bible regarding the period of the end and the Antichrist regarding Israel. Daniel 9:27. That's why 9/27 comes into play here. But it not only comes into play with the bombing of Beirut on the 27th and the announcement then on the 28th of the death of the leader of Hezbollah, but also on the 27th was the big prophetic speech by the leader of Israel, Netanyahu, at the UN. Netanyahu was giving a speech at the UN regarding its right to defend itself, and then later after the speech, Israel bombed Beirut, and then the leader of Hezbollah was announced to be dead on the 28th. So this also coincided with the bombing of the movie Megalopolis, Netanyahu's speech in the Megalopolis of New York City. Okay, also, on the 28th, the news was that J.D. Vance, the vice presidential candidate, was having a town hall meeting, or rather, what would you call it? A town hall broadcast or interview, etc. That was broadcast with one of the leading evangelicals. Okay, and this was a hint. This Vance and the evangelical, this was big news. It wasn't just an obscure story, right? It was one of the main stories of the day. This town hall with J.D. Vance and the evangelical, the evangelist, was a hint at Vangelis, the music artist. And that's because it's a long story, but God used the death of Vangelis as a major prophetic sign to point to the bombing of Israel, by Israel of Iran. Okay? And that was in May of 2022, and I explained that in another video that will be talking about this, these amazing things. This video is about Carter, not Israel bombing Iran. Really, I'm also including this in this Carter video because Carter is relevant to all of this. But anyway, this particular sign, there's so much to it. I'm not going to explain it, but it was a sign that God used. And the thing about that sign, the day that Vangelis died, was the day of the announcement of the new the large-scale military drill that Israel was conducting, named Chariots of Fire. This was the first news of the Chariots of Fire drill, and it included a large-scale operation over the Mediterranean simulating Israel's fighter jets attacking Iran. That was part of the Chariots of Fire military drill. Okay, and obviously that would be the reason for the name Chariots of Fire. If you're familiar with this in the Bible, the Chariots of Fire, it was in the sky. Well, so anyway, that day that the Chariots of Fire military drill was first announced was the day of the death of Vangelis. And Vangelis, of course, is known for his biggest hit, Chariots of Fire. So that's why it was a prophetic sign that God was using. So anyway, that's what's being hinted at with the combination of Vance and the evangelical in this town hall, which was news on this day. This date that was expected in advance to be a date in the trail of signs leading to the day it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. Okay, so that's amazing. We had the Vangelis sign on the 28th of September this year. Okay, now this step, September 28th, is 40 plus 40 days exactly to the date it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. This was a step that continues on, and the trail leads to December 17th, 2024 as being the date, which is 40 plus 40 days exactly after the evangelists and the announcement of the death of the Hezbollah leader, and that coincided with Netanyahu's speech at the UN, etc. And so the reason why 40 plus 40 days is relevant is because, well, for one thing, the 44th president is the Antichrist, and Jimmy Carter is symbolism for this. There are many parallels between Carter and Obama that I explain in other videos, including the must-watch Malaise prophecy video, the Carter Malaise speech video, okay? Look for that thumbnail, watch that video. And also the 444-day Iranian hostage crisis, which coincided with the final 444 days of Carter's presidency. Because Persia, Iran, is ultimately symbolism for the Antichrist because of Bible prophecy, and the Antichrist is the 44th president. And so that's another reason for the relevance of the 40 plus 40 days to this date that it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran. Okay, now this is also interestingly, 22% of a year, and the 22nd prime number is 79. The day prior, on the 27th, was the day that Netanyahu spoke at the 79th General Assembly of the UN. That's not a coincidence. And also, in other words, this is also relevant, but also 80 days is 79 days in between count. Right? So if we don't count the starting date or the last date, it is 79 days in between these two dates. And again, the dates overlap. The Netanyahu speech at the 79th UN bled into the following day because that was the day that Israel bombed Beirut, but then it was announced in the morning of the following day on the 28th that the leader of Hezbollah had been killed in the bombing. Okay, so that's why the 79 days between these two dates as well. God was hinting at this. Another thing too is that there was another major prophetic sign in Beirut involving an explosion the day that the huge warehouse that was storing the fertilizer exploded in the port of Beirut in 2020. Everyone will remember this, I'm sure. The explosion caused the equivalent of a large earthquake felt in Israel. And anyway, this explosion occurred in Beirut on the birthday of Barack Obama. And that's prophetic, and that's explained in other videos. It's not so relevant for these connections in this video, so I'm not going to get into it. But the point is that it was pointing to Obama. And by the way, Obama's name hints at Obama. That's also, by the way, the reason for the prophetic barrack bombings in Beirut in 1983. The barrack bombings hints at Barack Obama. There's lots of connections to confirm that as well, which I won't get into here. And so this is just more confirmation for this bombing of Beirut on September 28th and the addition of 40 plus 40 days, which hints at the 44th president, and these connections that I just explained involving the bombs in Beirut and Barack Obama confirm the relevance of this 40 plus 40 days connection to the bombing in Beirut on September 28th. What is also relevant here too is that the 44th president is the Antichrist who will lead the UN in an effort to condemn Israel and divide Israel and to make Jerusalem an international city after Israel bombs Iran and also nukes Damascus, Syria, which incidentally is symbolized by the number 44. Damascus is symbolism, the number 44 is symbolism for Damascus, which is explained in other videos too. Also, on August 13th, Ilhan Omar won her Democratic primary election by 13%. This is the rabid, most anti-Semitic member of Congress
okay? And she won her primary on the 9th of Av, the day about calamity for Jews, by 13%. In the Bible, the Jews were persecuted by the leaders, and she is a leader, of Iran on the 13th days of the months. Okay, there was the decree to get the Jews and destroy the Jews and kill the Jews in Iran, in ancient Persia, which is today Iran. That was made on the 13th, and the decree said that the beginning of the calamity and persecution of the Jews would begin on a future month on the 13th day of that month. So this is one reason why in the Bible the number 13 is symbolic of the Antichrist, who in the end times will persecute the Jews in Israel, in Judea. But what's amazing here too is we're getting all of these 13s, as you can see here. She won her primary, she's a leader, she's like, if you will, symbolic of Haman, the leader, but not the supreme leader, but the leader, like a general in Iran, in Persia, in the book of Esther, with his decrees, that involved the number 13th of the month, okay? And that was 2 13th days of the month, and I just explained how the 26th hints at this, because it is 2 times 13, 13 plus 13th day of the month of August, which hints at Av, which is synonymous with the calamity for Jews. And this is the 9th of Av we're talking about. And she won her primary by 13% on the 9th of Av. 13 days on the 13th of the month, by the way. She won by 13% on the 13th of the month, 13 days before it is predicted that Israel will bomb Iran, ancient Persia, which is a story in the Bible, in the book of Esther, where when the Jews were in Persia and their persecution being on the 13th days of the month. And again, I'll just say it one more time. I'm being redundant, I know, but it was 2 13th days of the month, and that's what the 26th of August hints at. She won her primary by 13% on the 13th of the month, 13 days before the 26th, which is predicted to involve Iran, Persia. Gaza equals Carter. I explained that because of the Camp David Accords. Symbolically, Gaza equals Carter. Carter was inaugurated in 77. On August 13th, new footage was released of the 77th Battalion being overwhelmed by Hamas terrorists. Okay, that was the news on this 9th of Av date. We had this new disturbing footage of this event when Hamas terrorists took over the tanks at the border. I mean, that's the iconic image of the invasion, right? One of them is this Hamas celebrating on top of the tanks right beside the fence that they just broke through. Well, on this 9th of Av date, which is about the Romans breaking through the wall and then destroying the temple, on this 9th of Av date in 2024, the 9th of Av, first 9th of Av date following the calamity on October 7th, 2023, we have the new footage. This is amazing. This is clearly a prophetic sign. But not only that, it hints at Carter, and it's Gaza, and Carter equals Gaza because of the Camp David Accords, in which he pressured Israel to give a huge chunk of Gaza back to Egypt. Okay, and Carter is, in God's signs, associated with the number 77 because of his inauguration in 77, which began, by the way, another prophecy or another story God is telling, a parallel of 7 kings, 7 presidents that began with Carter's presidency in 77. The 7th king was Trump, who was also inaugurated in a year ending in 7. And on that day, Trump was exactly 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. And 77 days later, Trump launched missiles into the Middle East, 59 of them, and 59 is the 7th super prime number. Okay, so anyway, so that's, how Carter is associated with 77, but on this day we had the 77th Battalion footage of the Hamas terrorists, okay. Another story on August 13th, that was clearly a prophetic sign. The Secretary of Defense, Anthony Blinken, approved. Okay, so Blinken's name in Hebrew gematria is equal to 126, which hints at this number that symbolizes the Antichrist in Bible prophecy, to 1,260. Also, that 1,260 days is the equivalent of 42 months in Bible prophecy, and Blinken's name in English gematria equals 402, which hints at 42. And we're talking about Israel and the restoration of the Temple Mount, and the Ninth of Av being about the Temple Mount, which was recaptured on the date 67 and 67, and Blinken's name in simple English gematria, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, is equal to 67. So that's confirmation, like a second witness, like I said, is required, that Blinken is prophetic here in this Ninth of Av context. And by the way, also these 42 months and 1,260 days also is associated with the Temple Mount, by the way, in Bible prophecy. Now, August 13th was the day that Blinken, the Ninth of Av date, approved the sale of $20 billion in military equipment to Israel. 20 equals 4 times 4 plus 4, and God repeats the number 3 times for emphasis of its symbolic meaning. That's because this hints at the 44th president, the Antichrist, who will persecute the Jews in Judea and be on the Temple Mount, making Jerusalem an international city. The biggest transgression against God described in Bible prophecy that occurs at the end that will culminate with the Lord coming back at Israel's hour of greatest need, when the world is ganged up on Israel, ready to destroy it, as described in Zechariah chapter 12, which is when the Jews finally call out for Jesus to save them, and then the second coming, Jesus comes and saves them, and instantly destroys Israel's enemies. And that's why Jesus said that he wouldn't return until the Jews call out for him by his name, which is what will happen very soon. Antichrist, 20 also equals 5 times 4, which hints at 54. And the reciprocal of 54 is 0.0185, 185, 185. And 185 is the 60th semi-prime number, which in other words gives us a series of 666, which is the number of the Antichrist. And if the number 45 is symbolic of the second coming of Jesus, then Satan's prerogative is to inverse everything. And so the inverse of 45 is 54, and that's why we get 666 out of 54. Also, Barack Obama will be the president again for 54 days, beginning on November 2nd. This is the prediction that God is communicating in his signs, and this is why he will be president for 54 days. Okay, so 20 equals 4 times 5, which hints at 45, the ninth triangular number. And this is the Ninth of Av date we are talking about, which is August 13th, the day of this Blinken sign involving military equipment being sold to Israel. And we are talking about how all of this is pointing to the date that Israel will use military equipment to bomb Iran, which, by the way, will also lead to the bombing of Damascus. And Damascus is symbolized by the number 444. Ilhan Omar won the 2 plus 3rd district. Okay, so she represents the 5th district, which is 2 plus 3, which hints at the number 23, the number that the basketball president wore when he was in high school. Also, 23 is the 9th prime number, and we were talking about the 9th of Av here. Okay, and this was it. Omar is representative of the 2 plus 3rd district in the 32nd state, Minnesota. 32 also hints at 23. But also, the name Obama in simple English gematria is equal to 32. Okay, and so, and this was on the 9th of Av. That's a pairing of 9 and 23. Not only is the number 23 the 9th prime number, but it's a pairing of 9 and 23. And that's how God's big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third witnesses, as I explained. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9 and 23, because the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 became the president in 2009. And the reason why I know that these are the numbers that God pairs is because I've been studying his big picture of signs from morning until night for more than full-time hours for 6 years. Okay, and so also 32 equals bomb. And we were talking about this connection to Israel bombing Iran. 32 is equal to bomb in simple English gematria, just as the name Obama is. And Obama hints at Obama. All right? That's why the Barak bombings, the Barak bombings, the Barak bombings in Beirut, and on and on. Okay? And so also, Blinken sold $20 billion to Israel on the 9th of Av, a pairing of 9 and 44, because 20 is 4 times 4 plus 4. But also, 32 is also a hint at Barack Obama because it is 4 times 8, and Barack Obama is predicted to become the 48th president after Michelle Obama, the predicted 47th president, will appoint him as her vice president. And she is predicted to become the president after it is predicted that Joe Biden will step down, after it is predicted that Michelle Obama will replace Kamala Harris, after it is predicted that she will die in a plane crash on August 21st at 3 a.m. In St. Louis. Okay, so it's 4 times 8, but it's also 32 is also 8 times 4. And the name Obama is equal to 84 in Hebrew gematria, and Obama was born on the date 8/4, August 4th. Okay, so that's why it's all relevant here, and Blinken and the whole administration is an Obama administration. We really are already in the 3rd term for Obama, because the whole setup is, and Biden isn't really in control. Everyone knows that. The Democrats finally have admitted it, but we've known that for years, the ones that love truth. In other words, the Democrats don't love truth. And so, but who is running the show? Well, it's the Obama administration. It's the 4th branch of government that runs the show, and they're all Obama appointees, right? Radical lefties, communists that Obama installed, which is why we're undergoing a soft coup over the last 4 years. Okay, and the end of democracy. And their claiming to desire to protect democracy is simply projection, which is classic communist strategy, to accuse the enemy of exactly what they're doing. And communist strategy has no integrity. It's do whatever is necessary. The ends justify the means. And so that's why communism is evil. And collectivism inevitably results in trampling on the rights of the individual, which is why communism is anti-democratic, which is why the Obama 4th branch of government is anti-democratic. And it's projection that they want to protect democracy, because the president, the candidate that's desiring to protect democracy is the one they're accusing of wanting to end democracy. It's them, it's the complete opposite. Okay, and so that will do it for this video. This is the explanation for the signs that occurred on the 9th of Av involving Carter and Israel, and confirmation that Israel will bomb Iran on August 26th.
Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, TrumpPrediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the BitChute.com or the Odyssey.com channel. And do it now in case you aren't able to later.